Does everybody look pretty, Emma Kate?
As, as, as pretty as we're gonna get. I gotta find your script again. I lost the script.
Always in the scent. Yeah.
Okay. Is the mic live? Okay. Then I'll let Omar talk.
I'm studying here.
Yeah.
Biggest trades in NFL. Yeah, I mean,
With you.
it's out there.
I'm not sure there's an actual possibility either, but something they have.
I mean, if he plays hardball and basically you don't want your quarterback to be not buying into your culture. That's the one thing you can't afford. Look what if they can actually get evidence to what happens when you ignore that. You look at the Rockets and James Harden. It's like the perfect storm.
Yeah, the NBA is a different animal than name a quarterback who's been traded in his prime.
Jay
like
Cutler.
this. Come on.
You asked me to name one. I did.
He never had a prime.
Oh, stop it. Not an elite quarterback. I agree with you. I literally just wrote that on the Q&A.
That's what I mean.
But here's the thing. If there is one position that can force this, it's the quarterback.
Yes. And maybe it's a new
the players are. This is a new generation of players, no doubt about it.
So maybe we'll see. Yeah. But the fact it's even out there, if the Dolphins, you look at this.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure they'll say they're not, but they'd be morons to not.
If they have to do their due diligence.
Yeah. We're listening. Yes, we are. Well, we're 1.5 weeks into the NFL offseason. We've already got some drama in Dolphins land. Right when you think the franchise is set with their quarterback, one of the NFL's top-rated passers bats his eyes in Miami's direction repeatedly. Deshawn Watson, who finished 2020 season as the second highest rated quarterback despite his team's 4-12 record, he's reportedly wants out of Houston and is seemingly working his magic to force a trade from the franchise. He has a no-trade clause, which gives him some leverage in this situation, and according to an ESPN report, reportedly has his sights set on Miami. What should the franchise do? We'll discuss this on X's and Omar. I am Omar Kelly, and this is Dave Hyde, Sentinel columnist. Dave, you wrote a column last week when there was just a flicker of discussion that Deshaun Watson wants out, and you said Dolphins absolutely have to be front of the line.
Oh, without doubt. If there's Deshaun Watson twice expressed discontent with the Houston, not just the Houston organization, but the owner. Okay, and that is a telltale sign something's wrong there. Okay. And now I think they're nuts if they trade him. I think if I'm the new GM coming in there, Rick Cesario from the Patriots, the first thing I do is get peace with Deshaun Watson. Okay, because of who.
What if there is no peace? What if there can be no peace?
That's the Dolphins' job, to be sitting right outside that door and saying, what will it take, or here's what we think. And they would be crazy not to do their due diligence, find out the cost, and have great interest in Deshaun Watson. Quarterbacks like this at 25 years old never get traded. Now, we talked before the show, maybe this is a start of something new in the NFL, but it's just there's no, I'm sure somewhere in the NFL history there is precedent, but nothing comes to mind. There's a Drew Brees after the Chargers drafted Phillip Rivers and Drew Brees tore up his shoulder, they let him go to free agency. That's a
free
different
agency.
than this.
How do you ignore the Jay Cutler trade, Dave Hyde? How do you ignore it?
You're Jay Cutler again, as I say. There was no prime for Jay Cutler. Okay, you never had a prime.
There was a prime for Jay Cutler. He got traded in his prime and is actually still the biggest trade made for a quarterback. 2 first-round picks, a third, and Kyle Orton. That's the equivalent of 4 assets. I think that's the baseline of what the Houston Texans will be interested in getting. I am not necessarily certain.
Omar, let me interrupt you to draw the line. When people say, "Oh, it'll take 3 first-round picks," you're not really understanding what the Dolphins has. The Dolphins have the 3rd pick in the draft. Okay, you can't say that's a first-round pick. You could turn that into a lower first-round pick and 3 more lower picks. So you can't just say, "Oh, it'll take 3." No, that in itself is a huge. And the other piece the Dolphins have, nobody else has, is Tua Tagovailoa. And what does Houston think of him? So there are pieces that could interest Houston if they have to make this trade.
But in fairness to what I was saying, and I agree with you, I think this trade, and I just wrote a Sun Sentinel Q&A, I think it'll take the equivalent of 3 first-round picks. Now, when I say the equivalent of 3 first-round picks, that means Tua, who is worth a first-round pick, and, for instance, the number 3, which I wouldn't want to give up, but that's the equivalent of 2 first-round picks. The number 3 pick is worth 2,020 trade value points. Miami's number 18 pick is worth 900 trade value points. You add those up, number 3 is 2 first-round picks. But here's the thing about it, and we'll discuss this later on in the show. Do the Texans have interest in Tua? Because right now, I think the Texans are in a position to name their quarterback. They can look at just about every team in the NFL and say, okay, we want your quarterback for our quarterback and give us 2 first-round picks. And I think whether it be the Los Angeles Rams, I'd do that with the Las Vegas Raiders, I'd do that with the Detroit Lions. I don't think there's any team that would say, look at Deshaun Watson, who finished the season as the 2nd highest rated quarterback, and say, yeah, he's not an upgrade over our quarterback.
I don't disagree with you at all, but again, what separates the Dolphins from the other teams is assuming, and we don't know, assuming they like Tua, correct, is that 3rd pick in the draft. That's something that the Jets could offer Darnold in the number 2 pick, I guess.
Don't make me laugh. But
you're right. That's a different arrangement. You're right, and so that's why Houston would have it. The other part of this, and this is a big part, according to Chris Mortensen, who's very respected ESPN reporter, he doesn't go out there on these crazy reports, and he said that Deshaun Watson has interest in the Dolphins, and he only named the Dolphins as a possible team they could be traded to. And Deshaun Watson does have some power in this because it was no trade clause, because no team would want to take him on if he didn't want to be there. And so you marry those 2 thoughts. Deshaun Watson wants to come to the Dolphins reportedly, and the Dolphins have ammunition for a trade, and that's why this is drawing such interest.
Yeah. Let's get to our first question, which comes from Showtime. Do you think the Dolphins are a Deshaun Watson away from a Super Bowl? Good question.
That's not. Look, when they had Dan Marino, were they a Dan Marino away from the Super Bowl? No, everybody knows you need pieces. The good thing about this.
Top 5 defense isn't a good enough piece for you, Dave?
The defense was a top 6, I think, finished.
Number 6. Okay. But they spent most of the year number 1 before they got beat down by the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I mean, look, the lines need to grow up. What are they going to grow into? That's Chris Greer and Brian Flores's, part of their offseason. What do we have there? Okay, Now, we all know they need playmakers on offense, okay? The good thing about this trade, if it's structured as you give them the 3, you give them a second round pick, something the following year, is you still have a normal draft this year. You
That's
still
a lot
have
of
your
currency,
first
Dave.
round, you still have a second round. You still have the rest of the draft to fill out some of the stuff.
I think if you add Deshaun Watson, this was a 10-6 team. They could have gotten to 11 wins. Obviously, could have had 9 wins as well. Could have went either way. With an Xavier Howard, with Mike Gesicki, with Devontae Parker, who I believe are the better pieces. Those are at least 2 valuable offensive weapons. And Deshaun Watson, a number 5 defense. I think Xavier Howard, if he delivers what he delivered last year, you're going to have a top 5 defense. And with a Deshaun Watson, and let's say you go get a running game, yeah, you're probably in the same conversation with the Seattle Seahawks and the Pittsburgh Steelers in terms of the caliber of team. You're looking at no doubt about it, a 10, 11 win team. The question is, are you in the same conversation with the Buffalo Bills or the Kansas City Chiefs or the Green Bay Packers? Who knows based on injury. So, yes, I would say if you do add Deshaun Watson, I think you are kind of making this an instant contender.
Yeah, I agree. Instant contender now. Super Bowl, then what do they do with the draft picks? How does the line grow up? You get back to the questions of what we're having, whether they get Deshaun Watson or not. Deshaun Watson answers a huge problem for this team. And maybe, let's back this up a little. Maybe Tua grows up to that. But why would you turn down someone offering you the finished product right now? To me, it's a no-brainer for the Dolphins to get in the mix of the trade.
Daniel wants to know, do you think trying to trade for Watson is a bad idea? We wouldn't have any playmakers giving away all our draft picks. And I know Tua is your guy. Well, Tua is my guy, so let me answer this question. Tua is my guy. I fully believe in Tua. And this kind of comes into my thought process of whether do you want a fixer-upper that you can do it your way and renovate. I just bought a fixer-upper. It's been a nightmare. It cost me probably twice as much as I intended to do to fix it up. Or do you want a move-in ready? It's not going to be your way. It's not going to be custom made. It's things probably the back the tile might not be to your liking. The floor might not be the color you like. But you walk in and you don't have to do anything. And considering I just did a fixer-upper, and as I said to you, it's twice the price when you start to open up things and things just aren't the way that you thought they would be. I would take the move-in ready, Dave. I'd take the move-in ready and probably pay the premium price.
Yeah, to me, that part of it's a no-brainer. Deshaun Watson is everything everybody dreams Tua can be.
Yes.
Okay, this takes the risk out of it.
Yes.
And as far as the question, it doesn't take away all the draft picks. The Dolphins have so many draft picks.
Yes.
They're gonna again even if they give the number 3 pick, a second round pick, a pick next year, they're gonna have a normal draft this year. They're gonna have a first round pick. They're gonna have a second round pick. That's that's part of the beauty of the way they've structured the trade so far. It put them in a position where they can do this and add some of the pieces they still need. Kyle needs to know, Omar, would Miami be making the same mistake they always do by trading for Watson? Why trade for Watson mid-rebuild when you're not ready to go all in on a ring yet?
I think that it certainly isn't part of the plan. This is entering year 3 of this rebuild. They've done it the right way. They stayed steady, stayed the course. But we're talking about an unprecedented situation where a young elite quarterback in his prime with a manageable contract locked up for 5 years. It's not like you got to trade for him and then sign him. Houston's paid his $27 million signing bonus, so they paid the freight for the deal. You're walking away probably $10 million ahead if you trade Tua to him, since you paid $19 million for his signing bonus. It just speeds up the process. And as you said, Dave, I think you still have enough ability and assets to add more pieces to make this the team that you have the potential to be. You've got about $33 million in cap space. It's not a gazillion dollars, but it's respectable money. You can add 4 good pieces with that much cap space. You've got other avenues and ways to create more cap space. There's a line of free agents that are trying to get to the Dolphins. And I know this because a lot of them have contacted me. People are interested. They want to be here, Deshawn Watson or not. So I think that it's a great situation for you to be in. You could still add young players with the draft picks you have. Free agents are lining up to get here via free agency or trade. And I think this is a great situation for them. So I don't think it would be the same thing as fast forwarding the rebuild. It's just basically pressing the fast forward button.
Yeah, the question here isn't why the Dolphins would be interested. To me, the question is, why would Houston trade that? And they would only trade it if Deshaun Watson forces their hand somehow. And I've said this before on the show now, so in 1988, Dan Marino went to the Dolphins and he said, would it be in both of our interests if you trade me? In effect, diplomatically saying he wanted out. Okay, the Dolphins, they didn't trade Marino. Now, why didn't they? For obvious reasons. You don't trade a guy who can change games every Sunday for the hope and a maybe in draft picks and et cetera, et cetera. And that'd be the question for Houston. It would be a last resort for Houston, especially a new GM comes in and he throws out the face of the franchise in many regards, and as his first move. So I don't put a huge percent that this happens, but I'm 100% in on, if I'm the Dolphins, on whatever chance you can make it happen.
Let me ask you this question: Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, you make that trade?
Not with Justin Herbert, I don't know. Justin Herbert had he set all rookie passing and everything record. He was great. Okay, and you see that's the ceiling looks really high for Justin Herbert. Okay.
If you're the Chargers, you say you don't do it, but if you're the Dolphins, you say you do it.
Yeah, there's Justin Herbert. Let's look at their rookie records, and that doesn't mean, okay, just so I know I'm going to get pushback on this, it doesn't mean in year 3, Tua is great and Justin Herbert's not. But from what we know now, Justin Herbert just set every rookie passing record that you can think of, okay? Tua was benched 2 of the last 5 games, and the only reason it won 3 out of 6 is because Ryan Fitzpatrick tested positive for COVID. Okay, so you don't know what you have, and I know he didn't have any. I agree, he needs playmakers and all that. Okay, but you don't know what you have with Tua. With Justin Herbert, it's you're down the road further. So that's the bottom line for me on that.
I look at it from this standpoint. He's a top 5 passer in the league. There isn't anybody who isn't a top 5 passer in the league I wouldn't trade him for. I wouldn't trade for him. So that includes Justin Herbert, it includes Joe Burrow, it includes Baker Mayfield. I might include Lamar Jackson. I'm not a huge Lamar Jackson fan, believer in the style. I think that, it probably doesn't include 2 quarterbacks, and that's Josh Allen, which shows you how far I've come in my thought process with Josh Allen, and a certain quarterback in Kansas City. Those are only 2 guys I would really put ahead of where Deshaun Watson is.
What about Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers is old, so I probably would trade him.
Right. Okay, the age factor plays into there, but that's a good point. Okay. The Dolphins have committed to coach the Senior Bowl, Omar, and that will give the franchise up close and personal access to nearly 100 draft prospects competing in the best showcase game leading up to the draft. The last time the Miami coached in the game, they selected 4 players who competed in the Senior Bowl: Jared Odrick, Koamisi, John Jerry, AJ Edds. Could this be the edge the Dolphins are looking for?
Well, it is certainly a tremendous edge. Senior Bowl is probably my favorite assignment of the year. You get a chance to talk, meet up, talk for Justin Herbert, watch him practice all week. And I liked him a lot better than I thought I would. Now, the personality, when I got to meet him and interact with him, personality reminded me a little bit about of Ryan Tannehill, and that kind of turned me off. So it's a great opportunity to get to know, see, work with, and here's the thing: when you coach them, you get to learn how quickly they learn. You get to learn their level of focus in these meetings, and obviously they're putting their best foot forward. You get to put them through specific drills and see how they react to them on the field, up close and personal. You get to see how they react to hard coaching. These are all benefits. This is a no-brainer for the Miami Dolphins, and they should consider themselves lucky and fortunate. Now, hopefully, they end up with a bounty of draft picks better than the 4 that they had last year. While those are all multi-year starters for the Dolphins, they were just okay players. I would love to walk out of this draft. I watched Aaron Donald at the Senior Bowl, and he just dominated all damn week, went like 8th, and, because of his size. But you should have known and saw that he would be an elite player. And the Dolphins, hopefully they don't miss out on the next Aaron Donald.
Yeah, I don't disagree. It's nice to be the Senior Bowl coaches. That's good. You get maybe a little more, but it's not like every NFL team has scouts at the practice. They're watching up close and personal what's going on.
True.
So
not in the meetings though.
Okay, look, there is anecdotal evidence to come out of the Senior Bowl that how important it is. I agree with that. And one of them, the Dolphins coached in '86. Don Shula coached his son Mike Shula, and Dave Shula was on the staff. But out of that game, John Offerdahl stopped Bo Jackson at the goal line, and from that play, the Dolphins drafted John Offerdahl. Okay, and then you go to Jimmy Johnson's era. He didn't coach it, but Norv Turner coached it, his former offensive coordinator in Dallas. And Norv Turner told Jimmy, Jason Taylor was the best player on our team this week. And I can't get our team he couldn't get the Redskins to pick him. And Jimmy took him in the 3rd round. And so there is, look, the Senior Bowl is important. I don't know how important coaching specifically adds to. It's nice. I'm not going to go overboard that it's much more of an edge than other teams have.
Here's why I think, and I'm certain that it's an edge. Last year, for the very first time, Brian Flores brought his whole coaching staff to the Senior Bowl. Not only was the scouting department there, but the coaching staff. And when you're at the Senior Bowl, there's a hotel that's used, and then that's used for networking and agents and players, and people are being interviewed, and it's the center and the hub. Well, you know what the Dolphins did? They set up their meeting room right outside the hotel lobby in the restaurant. They bought out the restaurant and used that for their meeting room, where they just pulled prospects in, and this was led by Brian Flores. And the whole staff was there. The whole scouting department was there. No team, probably since the Dallas Cowboys, had taken it that seriously. And right now, I believe he's just taking it to the next level, pouring some gasoline on it by coaching it. And this is important because I really don't believe that every player fits into the Brian Flores scheme and way. You got to be able to be brainwashed. You got to be wired a different way to buy into this stuff. I'm personally not wired that way, so it would be a struggle for me to buy in. But you need to find those players that can buy in and always put the team first and always, intelligent and driven. And it's just not about money. It's about my love for the game. You learn that.
We know it didn't help the Jeff Ireland, Bill Parcells, Tony Sperano when you look at that draft. It was okay. Audric, Misi.
It could have been worse.
Okay. It wasn't anything that you said, wow, they got a lot of good inside information there and they found out who to take, right?
Okay. Here's the interesting part of this whole thing. John Jerry was the only player in that group that they coached, which was a little bit puzzling to me. You saw John Jerry for an entire week, and I hate that I keep dissing John Jerry because he's been like a 9-year starter in the league. But you literally put your eyes on John Jerry and said, yeah, that's my guy.
Well, he is 9 years, a third-round pick, I believe. 9 years, that's not bad. I get what you're saying. He was. There were issues of laziness, I guess, right, with John Jerry.
Wait.
Early on. Wait, right. Okay, Benjamin wants to know what trait is Brian Flores looking for, or traits, from the next offensive coordinator, assuming there's no Watson trade and Tua is our quarterback.
I think experience sits at the top of the list. If you look at it, this is going to be the third offensive coordinator he's going to hire in 3 years. He probably wants somebody that can stick around for more than 1 year, because you don't want to keep changing this offense for Tua. I think the RPO is a major element. That's something that they desperately wanted to run, which is why Changelu was brought here. They probably worked on phase one, but realized they don't necessarily have the weaponry for it. But somebody who can run an RPO and a spread concept is probably paramount for what they're trying to do. I don't have any names for you, and it'll be interesting to see what comes of this, because I think that a lot of people are waiting for probably some of the other head coach positions to be filled, just so that they know what their options are before they sign on to Miami, because this is the nature of the business.
Yeah, and if we're looking at other jobs, the big job for the Dolphins is Houston. What does Houston do to and does it placate Deshaun Watson? But that's a
here's one element of it that I would like to enter into the equation. I've heard Bill O'Brien's name thrown in as possible Dolphins offensive coordinator. Brian Flores worked under him, with the Patriots for 1 year as an offensive assistant. I don't know if Deshaun Watson is a Bill O'Brien fan.
Well, it doesn't matter. Bill O'Brien signed on with Nick Saban at Alabama.
Oh, did he?
So that one's off the radar. I believe that was finalized. So it was reported as done. Let me see.
Let's move on to the next question before Dave provides that. Crispy Chicken 30 wants to know. I love the name. Do you see the Dolphins re-signing Davin Godchaux, who suffered a season-ending bicep injury? Do you have an outcome on the Bill O'Brien?
Yeah, it's not final. It said expected, and it's been reported widely and not shot down by anybody. So
it's probably trying to see what else is out there for him. I heard some stuff about Bill O'Brien that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. From some Texan players, and I also want to bring up one point about what you wrote last week about what you wrote yesterday about Andre Johnson coming out and speaking out on behalf of Deshaun Watson and letting everybody know, hey, something is wrong with what's going on with the Texans organization. It's not kosher. Understand, I've known Andre Johnson for 20 years, covering him at University of Miami. This is not a guy who seeks out attention at all. He avoids attention. And for him to publicly come out and say Deshaun Watson is in the right, things that are going on in the Texans organization are not healthy for players, and he needs to get out. That is huge. And the messenger is just as important as the message.
Exactly, Omar. I thought the exact same thing, and that's why I put a blog up on it when I saw it, in that Andre Johnson does not – I don't remember him ever making a loud statement like anything within, the neighborhood of something.
And this is the team where he is in their ring of honor, the only player in their ring of honor. That was – and
he called them pathetic. He said the situation was pathetic, and Houston's known for wasting careers, and told Deshaun Watson to stand your ground. And coming from him, like you said, Omar, the messenger means something. And he was a 7-time Pro Bowl player with Houston. So when you start hearing stuff like that, you think maybe if Nick Cesario doesn't get control of the situation, the new GM, then maybe he will be traded.
I think it's a little higher than that. I think the issue is based on, I don't want to speculate, but the issue is about ownership and the individual who is advising ownership. And the players are not comfortable with that. But anyway, let's get to Crispy Chicken. Let's get to Crispy Chicken's question about Godchild. Considering the Dolphins have Raekwon Davis, who I believe is probably a top 10 player on that team right now, Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer, I'm not certain Godchild has a future here unless he's going to take a below market deal. And this is Godchild's one opportunity to cash in on what he's been able to accomplish. He's been a 4-year starter before tearing up that bicep. Hopefully he's going to have a favorable market instead of having to play on a 1-year prove it deal like Ted Carris had to do. So I don't necessarily see him coming back. I think the Dolphins can add a young defensive tackle for less money and put that money and resources elsewhere.
Yeah, that's they don't have greatness on the defensive line.
No.
They have goodness, okay, and averageness. And maybe Raekwon Davis, again, maybe in year 2, year 3, we're talking differently. Okay, that's the real question to me. The offensive line and some components of the defensive line, who are they when they grow up? Okay, you saw some good. Austin Jackson, you saw some very good at times. But where are they at this time next year? How are we talking about them is really the question.
Our next one comes from Richard Leonard, who asks, overall, how was Ted Carris's play at center? We didn't hear much about him, which can be a good thing at that position. Is he worth re-signing? I'll start this because I'm a fan of the line play. I love trenches, and Ted Carris was okay. Reliable, consistent, wasn't necessarily busting heads in the second level, wasn't a pulling dynamo. I think all of the interior of the offensive line has to improve. That's a major issue for me if we're going to talk about teams, whether or not the Dolphins are a playoff team. I still say they got to get better in the trenches to hang with the playoff teams. And right now, Michael Dieter and Jesse Davis are both options to move inside and play center. And I wouldn't mind rolling with that and then rolling with a young player. But it really comes down to how much Ted Carris wants to sign for and wants to play for. Last year, I believe he played under a 1-year, $3 million deal. I have a hard time believing he's going to sign a multi-year deal that pays him about $3 million a year. And I'm not sure that would be something that I want to do. Maybe 3 years, $10 million.
Yeah, the question, and you brought it up, is Michael Dieter played some center in college, and that was one of the options when he was here. It seemed like he progressed this year in the little glimpse, really, you saw of him. So what's his future? Is it at center? Is it at guard? Is it a backup?
His future, I don't worry about his future. And I'm going to throw another offensive lineman in there. To make your line the way it needs to be, you got to stop worrying about, he had a decent rookie year. We need Austin Jackson rookie year. And if you don't have an Austin Jackson rookie year, I don't care what happens to you.
I agree. You need to, and you didn't see enough of that. You haven't seen enough of it the last several years. Is some guy putting a stamp on who he is, and he's only going to get better. And Austin Jackson was the one you could say, okay, that looks like you got something real there.
If you don't play like Laramie Tunsil on the offensive line, I don't care what happens to you. Get better.
Our next one comes from Jamie Goldberg. Who is the best player on the roster to fill the leadership void if Fitz leaves?
I don't think it's if Fitz leaves. I think Fitz is not coming back. So the leadership void, it has to be Tua. That's one of the reasons Fitz is probably not going to come back. They don't want anybody second guessing that this is Tua's team, if it is Tua's team. And to me, the leaders on the team are Tua, Bobby McCain, Kyle Van Noy, It'll be interesting to see if there's an offensive player that steps up and becomes a leader. Obviously, Jesse Davis is still in the equation. But yeah, you need a better leader on offense, and hopefully it'll be a playmaker. But leadership does take a drastic drop off with Ryan Fitzpatrick not coming back. But we haven't had a leader here comparable to Ryan Fitzpatrick since Chad Pennington. So a decade without it, I think we'll be fine.
Let me give you an old school definition of leadership, okay? Because I think in the media, who's the leader? Who's the leader? Okay, Jim Mandich would say they would get in the huddle, and the play call was for Larry Zonka. Everybody in the huddle would look at Larry Zonka, and they'd see in his face, yep, give me the ball. Give me the ball. And that is the leader. The guy who's ready to make the play when the game's on the line is the leader. And I get, we all get caught up in look, Ryan Fitzpatrick was as good a personality for around a team as you're going to find. Okay, in covering the Dolphins, I was surprised. My thoughts on Ryan Fitzpatrick, journeyman quarterback, bridge to what really is going to matter. And he was all that, but that bridge, what he did with it was
amazing.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Mike Gesicki. He brought out his confidence. He fed him. Devontae Parker, he helped him become confident again. Even Myles Gaskin, they had a special relationship. When Fitz is ready, and he won't be ready because he doesn't want to do it, and he's got 7 kids. And he told me he wants his next chapter of his life to be investing in his wife's dream. And I find that so commendable. But when he's ready, that guy's going to be an amazing head coach.
Omar, he has 8 kids. Can you imagine? Yeah, I want to spend my time with my family. No, you don't. No, you don't. Not all your time. You want to spend good time, but not,
He said he doesn't want to spend all day in a building, and that is coaching, and I understand. I think he'll be great on TV as well, and commentating. I see no reason why he can't go do what Tony Romo's doing. I think I haven't become as big a fan of a player who's joined the Dolphins. I think Fitz sits right up there, number 1. I have got better relationships with other guys, but Fitz right now, man, did he have such an imprint on this team.
And it showed, and this is, it was interesting, the day they named Tua the starter, the first day or second day of offseason when Chris Greer talked, same day the leadership players vote of the leadership award came out, Ryan Fitzpatrick won that. Okay, and so I know during the season they were saying it's Tua's team, it's Tua's team. It wasn't Tua's team, it was Ryan Fitzpatrick's team.
And you know what's important about that? I remember covering the Chad Henne teams that still had Chad Pennington on it. And I remember Brandon Marshall would be like, talk to Chad Henne? Why would I do that? I'm going to go talk to Pennington to find out what's going on and what defenses are doing. So they superseded the guy who was starting to go talk to the backup because they knew the backup knew more. And you can't have that with a young quarterback here.
I will say this, just to bring this full circle, Tua's personality is pretty golden too. Okay,
yes.
When the way he talks, he carries himself. Now he needs the game to go with that in the NFL, and that's the next step. But he has the personality to be a Ryan Fitzpatrick type.
Absolutely.
Leader on the team.
Well, Dave, the volume will be turned up on the NFL playoffs this week as the Kansas City Chiefs and Green Bay Packers come back from their week off, rested, comfy. The couple of teams that basically won games last week. The Chiefs host the Browns in the first AFC bracket, and then the Bills host the Ravens in a headbuster of a game in the second round. And then the Packers host the Rams in the NFC, and the Saints host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the second round. So giving us a Tom Brady versus Drew Brees showdown. Dave, which game are you most excited to watch?
Well, the stargazing guy from the last 20 years watching the NFL wants to watch Brees and Brady, okay? But if we're just talking pure football, then I'm Bills and Ravens because I'm fascinated by, I'm fascinated by Lamar Jackson, and can he win on that a stage where it's the stage is getting bigger now, okay? And Buffalo fascinates me too because of the way they develop. Now,
Brian Dable, baby, aggressive play caller.
Indianapolis outplayed Buffalo last week and should have won the game if some random breaks didn't go against them. So I'm all in on the Bills Ravens game.
I'm all in on Bills Ravens as well. I think that I'm so fascinated by Buffalo, and keep in mind I've spent a decade hating on Buffalo. So I just love that team. I think they're the only team that I think can beat Kansas City in the AFC. And I'm very curious to see what happens with them. I'm also fascinated about the Browns versus Kansas City. Look at what the Browns did. Well, Pittsburgh was clearly a fraud, but look at what the Browns did, not even at full strength, without their head coach. I think that would give them courage and the momentum that they need to go up there to Kansas City and shake up the world. Can you imagine if the Browns won, Dave?
Well, the weird thing about that game, they didn't not just have their head coach, they didn't practice all week.
Yeah.
Everything we talk about.
I swear, I think it benefited them. I swear to you, fresh legs benefited them.
If they had lost, we would have said, well, they didn't practice all week, so who knows, but Kansas City has had a week off, and typically in the playoffs, teams that get a bye week win the second week. So I'm assuming that the Chiefs, in part because of who they are and in part because they're a little more rested now, win that game. Who do you have, Brady or Brees, Omar? Who's going to win that game?
I'm rooting for Tom Brady from this standpoint. I want him to prove that the Patriots dynasty was him and not Belichick.
Whoa, Omar. See, you need both. Okay, look, who's the next best quarterback of his generation? It's either Brees or it is Aaron Rodgers, right? You know how many Super Bowls those guys won? Now, keep in mind, Brady's won 6. He's been in 9. You know how many those guys won? One each. One each. It isn't just Brady. It's Belichick, too, to put the team around him.
I hear you, but you know who held that franchise up for 18 years? It wasn't Bill. Bill, they're horrible in terms of the drafting. They're not great. And free agents were signing up for 70 cents on the dollar because of Brady, because of the situation that they'd be put in. He barely had any offensive weapons his whole career and still would take the team to the AFC Championship game. I want to see him take his team to the championship game. And sorry, Drew, if this is your last game, I apologize. But I need Tom Brady to prove that he's the GOAT and that he made Belichick, not Belichick made him.
I agree. I'm rooting for Brady, and whether he wins or not, he is the GOAT. I mean, that's
Don't
already.
tell Dan Marino fans that. I still hear from Dan Marino fans. One day I was on radio on QAM, and Brady was playing in the Super Bowl. Maybe it was his 4th, and I said, Tom Brady's the GOAT. There's no debating it. You can't put him in comparison with Dan Marino. And oh my God, did I light up the lines? Dan Marino fans will still swear to you, Dave, that he is the GOAT. So calm down over there.
Belichick and Brady, to me, they prove that you need both. You need a good organization that's at the top of its game, and you need a great quarterback. You're partners. And you look at the Hall of Fame, rarely does a coach make the Hall of Fame that a quarterback doesn't make the Hall of Fame too. They're married even into Canton. And so you need both, and you need a personnel guy. And Belichick is, for all intents and purposes, the final say in the personnel. But I'm with Brady. What he's done, the age, the way he carries him, I like. I'm fascinated by his career.
Alex has our next question. Based on the playoff football, does Miami need to invest more into the offensive and defensive lines since trench play often decides the postseason games, Dave? I'm curious. I'm going to
They
hear.
need to be better. They need to be better on the lines, and it better come. They've invested a lot of stuff on the offensive line,
Not enough.
and the main thing better be development. Okay, they better have taken these rookies and do they need to invest more? Of course, you got to invest every year. I think we're going to talk the maybe over the how big an investment. Okay, at this point, where do they invest? Second round pick, sure. Are you going to pick the number 3? We didn't even get into this, Omar. Devontae Smith, and
We'll get there. We'll get there, Dave.
Okay, all right, okay. We got all off season.
Yeah. I agree. You know where I am, Dave. And while the fantasy freaks will dominate the football in the regular season, they'll be talking about points and scoring and passing and whatnot. You know what wins in the playoffs, Dave? Run game and defense. And obviously, there are exceptions.
It's not the 80s anymore. You need 30 points. You need 30
Oh
points
my
to win
gosh.
this weekend. You will need 30 points to win these games this weekend.
I'm going to count up how many games are needed to win 30 points to win this weekend.
Let's do that. We'll count afterwards how many needed 30 to win, okay?
All right.
And I would bet at least 3 or 4. That's my over-under, 3.
Okay. All right.
Excuse me. Yeah, it's 4 games, 8 teams, okay. That's a good. Which current Dolphins player can you see pursuing a coaching career after their playing days are done?
We have that one. Oh, leadership. Yeah. I write the script. I think it's the same guys who are the captains. As I said, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I haven't seen a guy have more of a presence in the locker room than him, and that includes Zach Thomas, who I've got the tremendous amount of respect for. He was a great player. He led by example. He showed people and taught people. But Fitz's personality, people just gravitate to Fitz. I call it the Pied Piper effect. I've only seen it with Chad Pennington, where people just gravitate to them. I think Bobby McCain probably has a future in coaching. I think what he's been able to do in terms of sewing things together and helping guys be better and identify where they are. He's part of the reason why they had the #1 secondary in the league, which allowed them to have the #6 defense. And then Ted Carris is a guy who's, he's impressive in terms of him sewing it all together. Now the question is, they were all working out in his garage in the off season. These are the kind of guys that generally gravitate into coaching. Give you an example. And interestingly enough, all of the guys that I always identify that will make good coaches, they always say, I'll never go into coaching. Why would I want to do that? Like a Brian Hartline, who right now is one of the best wide receiver coaches in college football in the nation at Ohio State. I'll be interested to see what happens with him if Urban Meyer takes that Jacksonville Jaguars job. I said the Dolphins should have signed Hartline and brought him here on their coaching staff a year ago. We'll see what happens. Well, clearly he's not coming here now, but I think he's going to be a dynamic head coach when he gets the opportunity.
Yeah, just to throw a spin on that question of which players are future coach. Devontae Smith went back to Alabama evidently to get his diploma because he wants to be a coach, Omar. Just putting that on the table here.
All right. Now let's get to the question that Dave has been waiting for, which comes from Villain 112. Would you be against taking a certain defensive player at 3, Micah Parsons, if he's the best player available on your board? And while I'm intrigued by Micah Parsons, I don't necessarily feel like he fits in this defense. And honestly, if we're going to talk about the best players on the board, we got to start with Devonta Smith and Penei Sewell. And Dave, I'm sure you have a Devonta Smith perspective based on the national championship game.
Well, not just based on that. He did win the Heisman Trophy, and you go down the list of cornerbacks on tape he has beaten. and it's the elite of college football. So, they need a player they don't have a player like this. Okay, yeah. He's a rare player, and when you talk playmakers, this offense needs points. Tua needs help. I mean, you can go down a list of reasons to take him. My only question would be, okay, what can you get for that pick? Atlanta might need a quarterback, and it would trade up to take it at 3, possibly. And what could you just by slipping back one?
Have you seen the amount of money they got committed to Matt Ryan?
Well, they have $40 million committed to him, and he's 36. And are they at a point where saying we're not going to be up this high very often, and we got to get a young quarterback now? I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking, but
I'm not sure that Justin Fields is 3 worthy.
Yeah, it's starting to come out.
Yeah, and Devonta Smith, while I do have my concerns about his fragility and his body, he's too wiry. I promise you he doesn't weigh 175. And I know he got hurt on a awkward situation with his hands, but those type of hits, they are often in the NFL. And I do have concerns about him being healthy for 16 games a season. But then again, you could get the biggest receiver like Devontae Parker, and he'd still struggle to stay healthy. What I do notice and recognize is the playmaking ability, and it is off the charts. And I will give him that. And he is the exact type of weapon that the Dolphins need. But Micah Parsons is interesting because he is the type of linebacker who can help this team. He would fit into this hybrid 3-4 scheme. The problem is, I don't think he's that dynamic in terms of fishing out the run game, which is certainly what Dolphins need. And he's not an edge rusher like a Bradley Chubbs. So, and those are the 2 things Miami needs. They don't need another Kyle Van Noy. They kind of got a Kyle Van Noy.
Do they need a Penny Sewell? In other words, does this draft come down to the Alabama guy and the Oregon guy for the 2nd straight year? Is that what we're talking?
You know what's interesting? Somebody that I talked to in respect kind of talked me off of Penny Sewell, who I watched his tape because I watched Justin Herbert extensively last year, and I looked at that lineman because I can't help myself from looking at line play, and he was grade A. But I do remember I only watched passing plays. I didn't watch the running plays, and somebody informed me that Sewell is not a road grader like he needs to be considered an elite offensive lineman. He's not out there mowing down defensive linemen. So I got to rewatch that, but I'm not necessarily certain that I'm so hot on Penei Sewell at number 3 as I once was last week. But this is part of the process where the information comes in and the film work is done. And my opinion on Devonta Smith has changed too, because I said there's no way a guy that frail looking can last 16 games in the NFL. But I came to the conclusion, even though he got hurt in the national championship game, if you get 8 games of that, you'll be all right.
All right, a final question comes from, I feel like I'm in a Dickens show here. Ghost of Marino is asking a question. Let's say they don't take Sewell at 3 for whatever reason. What other pieces would you add to augment the offensive line? Do you have confidence with a 2nd-year line? Now you do realize, everybody watching, Omar's picking the questions. How many line questions have we had? Offensive line questions, right? This is what Omar likes to talk about.
If you'd like to pick the questions next week, you can certainly be welcome to do so.
Oh, you keep doing it. With the 2nd-year lineman improving, that you don't use a major asset on one.
I don't like what I saw last year. In 2020. It was certainly better than 2019, but it's not going to be good enough. Even if you add a superior back, you're still not going to have a sustainable run game. That hurts your play action, that hurts your RPO. You need one interior player that has the ability to pull and mow people down, whether it be the center like Mike Pouncey used to do, or whether it be a guard. Somebody reminded me of Justin Smiley on Twitter this week. Do you remember Justin Smiley?
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
Man, that guy was an amazing puller, even though he only lasted 1 season.
Yeah, he was hurt. He got hurt. That's the issue.
Yeah. But I want somebody who can pull and anchor a line from the interior. And And I'm fine with the tackles. I feel like I can move Robert Hunt inside to guard, and maybe he can give me what I want. And Solomon Kinley, as we know from watching the show, I wasn't really a fan. But maybe if he drops 30 pounds, he'll be a different player. Who knows? I mean, let's be real about it. The guy was hovering I think he was way over 340 and could not move, could not get to the second level, could not pull. And that's just not the type of line that I want.
Yeah, the question, like they were asking Solomon Kinley a few times to do something he's not, and that's not his strength, pull and run and all that. No. But, I'm curious, as we saw with Michael Dieter in year two, he's different, especially offensive linemen can really take big steps.
The second-year players took very big steps.
And defensive linemen, too. For
Christian Wilkins, Andrew Van Ginkel, Nick Needham, ignore the Buffalo game. The second-year players took tremendous steps forward. And if that's the calling card of Brian Flores' team, and I'm not ready to say that it is, I got to see 2 years of it, that's a tremendous trait, and we should be okay. Well, Dave, predictions. I need you to give me 2 teams, one from each conference that advances to the championship game.
All right. Well, I got I'll go with the Bills and the Chiefs, and because that's a game I want to see. I'd love to see that game.
That is a game I want to see.
And I'll go with the Bradys and I guess the Rams.
Rams, interesting. I'm going with Packers. I think, even though I said this last week when Russell Wilson, and goodness gracious, I'm very disappointed in Seattle. I think that Green Bay is primed and ready to make it to another championship.
Yeah, can I switch my pick, Omar? I'm just thinking I did a prediction show for tonight and I picked the Packers, so I want to be consistent. You're right. All right. Pick the
Packers. I think this is Aaron Rodgers' swan song. This is the opportunity to cement his legacy. I do think he's going to make it to the Super Bowl. And then you're right. I want to see Bills as much as I like and appreciate Lamar Jackson. I don't like his game, but I like and appreciate him as a player. Everybody knows I'm a big fan of the Baltimore Ravens and their style and how they build a franchise. I'm just not feeling them beating Buffalo. Buffalo, I think right now, Brian Daboll, the way he's calling plays, he's in a groove. So I'm going to pick Buffalo and then Kansas City. I don't think there's any chance that the Browns actually beat Kansas City. Well, thank you for watching X's and Omars. We are here and we'll continue to be here throughout the playoffs Wednesday at noon. You could also find Dolphins Q&A answering your questions, the X's and Omar leftovers, on the Sun Sentinel's website. All you got to do is go to Sun Sentinel Sports Dolphins page and you find some high fives and all the great takes that you can find at Sun Sentinel. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming, and we appreciate you.
Another long show. Hour. Wow. We had a lot of questions there at the end.
Yeah. We got into a lot of discussions. I'm actually going to turn this into like 3 questions a piece each segment, so it's shorter shows. So we're struggling to, I don't know why 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, yeah.